Opening shot, 1978, Canberra. A country that avoided the break is now learning how to breathe again. Whitlam is still the Prime Minister. The government is calmer, the public is steadier, the institutions are trusted, the Constitution is intact, and the 1980s are coming. But the 1980s we know, but not the 1980s we know, sorry. Act 1, Whitlam's third act, or his third term. Whitlam enters 1978 with something no Australian PM has had since Curtin, a second chance to finish the project, and he uses it. 1. Indigenous Australians, Australia moves forward earlier. Land rights legislation becomes national, not piecemeal. The groundwork for Mabo is laid a decade earlier. Reconciliation begins well before the wounds deepen. 2. Multicultural Australia becomes permanent. The policy becomes bipartisan. The backlash never forms. The country grows more confident in its identity. 3. Universities remain free. The HECS debate never emerges in the same way. Education becomes a national investment, not a personal debt. And 4. Australia becomes more independent. Foreign policy shifts earlier. Asia first, US aligned but not US dependent. A republic debate is calm, not angry. Whitlam doesn't get everything right, he never did, but he gets enough right to change the decade. Act 2. The Liberal Party has to rebuild. Fraser is gone, the Liberals are humbled, and the party has a choice. Go hard or go smart. They choose smart. Philip Lynch leads a moderate, a stabilised, a business-first centrist, not a cultural warrior, not a disruptor. Andrew Peacock becomes the future. Young, charismatic, policy-driven, a moderniser, not a wrecking ball. What this means for Australia: the Liberals never swing hard right, the Dries never take over, the Howard era never forms, the party becomes a calmer, more technocratic force. Australia avoids the ideological trench warfare of the 1990s and 2000s as a result. Act 3. The Hawke question. In our real timeline, Hawke rises because the party is broken, because 1975 shattered Labor, because Hayden is wounded, because the movement needs a saviour. But in this timeline, in this alternative timeline, Labor is stable, Hayden is respected, Whitlam hands over cleanly. Hawke still rises, but differently. He enters Parliament in 1980. He becomes a front bencher quickly. He becomes leader eventually. But he is not the emergency solution. He is the natural successor. The bigger shift, Hawke becomes more social democratic, less economically deregulatory. Why? Because there is no 75 trauma. There is no Labor must prove it's safe panic. There is no need for shock therapy. The Liberals are moderate, not neoliberal. The political centre is intact. Hawke becomes a builder, not a rescuer. He still becomes Prime Minister, but in 1985 or 1986, not 1983. And he governs a country that is calmer, more confident, and far less cynical. Act 4. The 1980s without that break. This is where the alternative timeline becomes profound. No neoliberal turn, no sweeping deregulation, no privatisation wave, no financialisation of the economy, no markets first ideology. Australia becomes a mixed economic powerhouse, Scandinavian style with sunshine. 2. A calmer media landscape. No dismissal equals no constitutional trauma equals no hyper-partisan press. The media remains adversarial, but they don't become weaponised. 3. A different national identity. Without the 1975 scar, Australia trusts institutions. The Republic debate is mature. Indigenous reconciliation is earlier. Multiculturalism is uncontested. The political centre holds. Australia becomes a more confident, less divided nation. 4. A different political class, no dismissal means. No generation raised on cynicism. No whatever it takes era. No culture wars. No constitutional anxiety. No deep trust of the Governor-General. Politics becomes competitive but not corrosive. The long tail into the 1990s and beyond. By the time Hawke becomes PM in the mid-80s, the economy is steadier. The political centre is stronger. The Liberals are moderate. The Labor Party is unified. And the country is far less polarised. Hawke governs a country that is ready to grow, not ready to fight. The biggest long-term shifts: Australia becomes a republic in the 90s. Indigenous reconciliation has happened, happens earlier. The culture wars never fully ignite. The political class remains more combative. The national psyche is less cynical. The Constitution remains unbroken. And the Senate never again considers blocking supply. Australia becomes a country that grew up without that fracture. A country that never lost faith in itself. A country that kept moving forward. Closing beat. The Australia we could have been. Episode 2 shows the decade that never happened. The decade where Whitlam finishes the project. The Liberals rebuild without rage. Hawke rises without trauma. And Australia becomes a calmer, more confident nation. This is the Australia that didn't break. This is the Australia that grew up whole. This is the Australia that kept its centre. A very different place.